Welcome to the panel presented by Sport Chek. We are here in Dallas with Jack Michaels, Bob Stauffer, and Peter Chiarelli, General Manager and President of Hockey Operations. Now, Peter, we just came off of a press conference, and you talked a lot about basically finding the best person available at number 10. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. It's a pretty fundamental premise in drafting, and you always want to draft the best player available. There comes a point when one of the variables when you decide who the best player available is kind of need of position. So that becomes one of the things you look at. Where we sit now, picking 10th. I feel we're in a kind of a good group, the secondary group, if you will, and we were talking about moving up or moving down. And we think with the level of players that are there and the degree of difference that, in all likelihood, we probably won't be moving anywhere if we make the pick, because I think someone's going to fall that's going to be in that second group. Now, we do have some needs. One being a puck-moving defenseman. There are a number of them in the draft and that are ranked in the top 15. So, we'll look at those players too. But at the end of the day. It's been my experience. It's pretty fairly well documented. You have to take the player who's most skilled and the best player available.
Peter, have we seen a evolution in the game in terms of the fact that maybe size matters less than before? Because you talked about puck moving defensemen. There's Quinn Hughes who can really skate and move it. Adam Boquist, right shot guy that can do it. Ty Smith, another guy. Is it less relevant size-wise than ever before in the National Hockey League with how the game's going?
I think you're right, Staff. I think size is still important, but you've seen the advent of these types of defensemen. You've seen how the rules have progressed and how it impacts a player of lesser stature. And even moving the puck, the less obstruction, so the quickness of moving the puck, these guys can really flourish. Having said that, if you look at the past Stanley Cup champions, it still matters, yep. And you can't ignore it. But certainly that type of player, whether it's on D or at forward, has been able to flourish a little more under these new rules.
Peter, in the run-up to the draft, there's so much preparation involved. But could you articulate the balance you have to strike between all that preparation and the ability to think on your feet on draft day if things suddenly change?
Well, you have to think on your feet, Jack. I mean, but I think it's all preparation. Like, you have to go through scenarios. You have to go through, like this morning we went through probably 9 different variations of the top 10. And situations, what we would do if there was opportunities above us or below us, and specifically what we do, what we would offer from a pick perspective, from a player perspective, and it's almost repetition and knowing what's available and knowing what the market is. So there is an element of thinking on your feet, but you have to rely on the people around you. You have to engage them into what you're doing and how you're thinking, so they know kind of what to present you with as far as options, and at the same time you got to be able to kind of move fluidly, whether it's via phone or foot, to talk to other managers and to find out what they're doing. If
the right player was there, and I know that people bring up a right shot defenseman, but I would suggest it's more of a skilled offensive defenseman. I would suggest you probably wouldn't hesitate to step up and make a move if need be.
As far as moving the pick?
Yeah, moving the pick and getting.
Yeah, no, I would entertain that. We've entertained that. We're trying to gauge what exactly that 10 pick will turn out to be as far as the player. Like, we know the players that are in that range. We know who our 10th player on the list is. We want to know what these players will become, when they will become that, and you compare that to, if we're going to trade that pick for a player, what is that player now? How will that player fit? And what will that player be going forward? And how long will he be able to contribute? So those are all things we're looking at. That's part of this, tying in the amateur side of it to the pro side of it. We have our pro scouts here. That's what we're doing also.
Peter, you said earlier in this panel it's about relying on your staff. And I think our fans would be interested that as the general manager, you can't possibly know, as well as the rest of your staff, what these prospects will be. Could you elaborate as far as the trust that you put in the people around you to come to you with a consensus that makes you feel confident about making the pick that's going to dictate the organization's future?
Sure. I mean, there's no time in the day, month, year for a manager to know all these players, even to know the top 30 players. I try and see the top 30 players, so I get a flavor of what the player is and what his deficiencies are and where he excels. I go into those viewings with backstories and all of them through the player reports, through what our scouts are saying. I mean, you need a strong staff. We've restructured the staff over the course of 3 years, and I'm feeling confident where our staff is. And you have to rely on them heavily, and you have to rely on, as I said earlier, about what's the player 10 going to be, and if we trade that pick, to know what player you won't be getting at 10 versus what you're going to be receiving. So you got to rely on your staff, on projection, and I mean, these guys. They get to know how I think and what I want to accomplish. I try and be very communicative to them. I want them to be engaged in feedback, and it's important because, as I said, you just can't know all the players, and if you pretend to know all the players, you're making a mistake.
And we shall see that all unfold tomorrow at the 2018 NHL Draft. Peter Chiarelli, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.